You're listening to A Tiny Homestead, the podcast comprised entirely of conversations with homesteaders, cottage food producers, and crafters, and topics adjacent. I'm your host, Mary Lewis. A Tiny Homestead podcast is sponsored by Homegrown Collective, a free-to-use farm-to-table platform, emphasizing local connections with ability to sell online, buy, sell, trade in local garden groups, and help us grow a new food system. You can find them at homegrowncollective.org. If you're enjoying this podcast, please like, subscribe, share it with a friend, or leave a comment. Thank you. Today I'm talking with Kelsey at Misty Mountain Homestead. Good morning, Kelsey. How are you?
Good morning, Mary. I'm doing great.
Good. I almost called you Misty. I almost said I'm talking with Misty at Misty Mountain Homestead. That's where my brain's at this morning.
That happens to me very, very often, actually.
Yep. Brain not functioning, words not working. We'll get it together eventually. Where are you in Minnesota? You told me before, but I forgot.
We live in South Haven, Minnesota, but we're actually closer to Fairhaven, but Fairhaven doesn't have a post office, so it's a South Haven address.
Okay, so what's the nearest big city to you?
We're about 20 miles south of St. Cloud.
Okay, yep, that helps. Thank you. Is it gray? Yeah. Is it gray up there today?
Oh yes, very foggy, very gray.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I was all excited because Wednesday was supposed to be the official real swinging into warm weather spring, and the last couple days have been kind of bleh.
Yep, that's true.
I'm waiting for the pretty sunny days where their crocuses start to pop up, and that hasn't happened yet. Okay, so Kelsey came back to visit and do a catch-up episode with me, and I looked, and the first episode Kelsey and I did was back in November of 2023. And I started the podcast in August of 2023. So it's been a minute since we've chatted. So tell me what's happening since then.
Well, we've really added to our meat rabbit colony. We have probably close to 60 rabbits right now. I would say 15 of them are breeders.
Okay.
And we have been selling and butchering those ourselves, and that's been a really good adventure. Lots of teaching moments for us and the kids both, and we're starting to learn how to tan their hides as well. A long-term goal, I would love to learn how to make hats. Because their hides are just so beautiful, and I really don't like seeing them to go to waste. And we've also started using, every part of the animal, their ears, their legs, feet, as dog treats. And you just dehydrate them and they turn into chips.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's been really, really fun. And of course, the dogs enjoy it as well. So, and we also have CUNY CUNY pigs now.
Okay.
We're going to start breeding those and selling the piglets, and then, of course, having some meat for ourselves. CUNY CUNY pigs are extremely high-quality pork. Their meat looks more like beef, and it actually has marbling in it. And then once you eat CUNY CUNY or Mangleesa is also another high-quality pork, it's really hard to go back to more of a normal pig, like a Yorkshire. But yeah.
So I have a question. I have a question about that real quick. If it looks more like beef, does it have the same kind of texture and flavor, or does it still taste like pork?
Well, I think it has the same texture as pork, but it definitely has a very rich flavor.
Okay.
I would say more even so than beef does. But yeah.
Okay, cool. I've never had either kind, so I thought I should ask. Okay. And I told you before I hit record, I've been looking at your Facebook pages because I wanted to see what you've been up to. And you make some of the most beautiful breads, ma'am.
Oh, thank you very much.
and other things.
It's been quite the process. Yeah.
So you've really gotten into baking since we talked last, I think. So tell me about that too.
It's been a little bit surprising. And I'm kind of just along for the ride. And I have had wonderful customers and farmers and just people show up out of the woodwork. And I'm kind of just doing things that I would do for my family. And then I, increased it by scale, which was really easy for me, actually. And I started with a little KitchenAid mixer, and I burnt through a couple of those motors. And now I have a 15 quart like professional mixer, and I remember being really nervous about buying that. And my husband's like, "Oh, it's only, 50 loaves of bread." He likes to encourage me how many loaves I'd have to sell for something I need to buy.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I have had that for a couple years now, and now it's too small.
Wow. Okay.
And so I'm probably going to have to look at getting a 30 quart mixer, which could make 20 loaves at one time. So it's been nuts. I probably make 100 to 120 loaves of sourdough a week. I also do pizza dough and sourdough buns and pies. So many pies. I think for Thanksgiving and Christmas this last year, I made like 90 pies. I don't even know.
And you do you do cookies too, right?
Cookies, scones.
Yeah.
Yeah, dipping oil. I do quite a bit, I guess.
Okay, I have two questions. I have a KitchenAid mixer, and I think it's the 6 quart one. It's a bigger one.
Okay.
And we haven't burned through it yet. We just bought it like a year and a half ago, and we have not used it much, really. I mean, I thought when I bought this big one, we'd use it a lot, and been busy with other stuff, like a podcast that I didn't know I was going to be doing when I bought the mixer. But we have burned through 2 KitchenAid mixers in the 20-something years that we've owned KitchenAid mixers. And it's so sad when they die. You're like, no, you're supposed to live forever. No. And so they're a great brand. I love them. But I am so envious of the fact that you have that huge mixer, because I really want one. I just have no room for it in my kitchen. I have very little counter space. So the question I have is, how much bigger than a 5.5 quart KitchenAid mixer is the one you have now that's a 15 quart?
Well, I think a normal size KitchenAid mixer is like 15 pounds maybe. The one that I have, that's a 15 quart, this thing weighs 200 pounds.
Wow.
It sits on the ground. So it doesn't need any special outlet, which is really nice. It's got tons of safety features, but it's a workhorse. It's I've been really pleased with it.
Is it loud?
I mean, my kids will be sleeping at 4 a.m. and a couple of them sleep downstairs, and I can obviously hear the mixer going, but they don't ever wake up.
Okay.
So I don't think it's terribly loud.
Okay.
Yeah.
I asked because our dog hates the vacuum cleaner. Like, goes to the door and sits there and whines because she hates the vacuum cleaner so much she wants to go outside. And she hasn't reacted to the KitchenAid mixer, but I suspect that if the motor was louder, she probably would want to go outside then too.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
So I don't know. She's a big fraidy cat with the vacuum, and I cannot figure out why. No one has ever bothered her with it. She hates it. So
does she? Is she afraid of storms too?
No. Last summer we got a really close lightning strike, so you could hear the thump when it hit the ground or the tree, and she just was like, woof, and she was fine.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, she's not
Well,
she's
that's
not
good.
afraid of storms, but that vacuum cleaner is the devil itself, she thinks.
That's
So,
funny.
I don't know, she's crazy. Okay, I had another question on the other stuff you told me, and then I got focused on the mixer and I forgot what I was going to ask you because my brain is not great this morning. Um, so how much time are you putting into baking? Because I know that making a dozen cookies to put it together, to put the ingredients together and have it ready to go in the oven is no different
Mhm.
than making the recipe for 12 dozen. But once you get into the
Right.
big numbers, is it a lot more time and effort?
Well, partially with the big mixer, like 2 days ago, I made like 25 pounds of chocolate chip cookies in that mixer. And the part that takes the longest, obviously, is baking it all.
Yeah.
I I have one standard, wall oven that I bake my bread in, but then now I have a smaller convection oven that I do, the pies and the cookies in. So that's been pretty nice. Um, I am kind of at the point where we are debating about putting in a second oven, um, because that's my biggest hookup is how long it takes me to bake stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, but I guess daily, I'm at the point where I'm probably working on the farm business for maybe 4 to 6 hours a day, um, while being home with the kids, and we're homeschooling, and we're pretty involved in church, and of course there's animals that need to be fed, and um, cleaning.
Uh-huh.
So I it feels like a full-time job to me. Being a stay-at-home mom is it's a good, very good responsibility, I feel.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I've said it before, I'm gonna say it again. I love that you are able to do your business and be there with your kids because you are giving them such a gift in being there with them.
yeah, and it's a gift for me too,
Mhm.
and when we first thought about homeschooling, I remember us being nervous about it. You know, uh, we would always be together. There's never any break. And I wasn't sure, as someone that, did the normal, public school stuff, that was so like unnerving to me. But now that we've been doing it for 5 years, we would never go back.
Mhm.
The kids are amazing. They're mature and their faith is strong, and um they each have farm chores every day, and you get to really spend time with your kids that way, and you know what they're learning. So it's been a huge blessing. And so, you know, they also like they see me working, but they also see me playing.
Mhm.
You know, I I think there's a good it needs to be a good balance of both, and if it becomes too overwhelming, I just back off a little bit. And then usually within uh, you know, a a couple weeks I'm ready to go at it again, you know. So you kind of just take it in seasons.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Um, one of the tricks that I used with my kids from the time they were little until, well, now they're adults and I still use it when they're stressed or whatever, is humor. I'm always the first
Mhm.
one to crack the joke so that they can laugh and take a big deep breath. Because laughing forces you to take a big deep breath. And that's how you kind of bring stress down is that big inhale and exhale. So for anybody out there who's got kids that are stressing, just crack something. Crack a joke that will make them take a big deep breath in and big deep breath out and get that bubble in their belly of happy and it'll break the tension a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna be real honest. I am a very serious person.
Hmm. Yeah.
I I don't jokes are not something that come naturally to me. If somebody tells me a joke, it's usually I don't get it. And I'm very much more you know, just get stuff done. I'm doing this right now. But my husband is the exact opposite. He is constantly cracking jokes, and he'll make funny noises, or poke jokes at me.
Yeah.
And it's really good that he's like that, because or else we would just all be serious all the time.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah.
It's my husband's like that too. He is the king of dad jokes. I just talked about this with somebody else yesterday. And I'm not a fan. I like really clever humor. Like the stuff where you there's a split second of what and then you get it because it's smart. It's a
Yeah.
smart joke. And dad jokes are not like that. And my son
Mhm.
that still lives with us, he really does appreciate a dad joke. So my husband
Yeah.
does them to me and I'm like, it's not funny. He's like, well, Karen thinks it's funny. And I'm like, yes, because he's 3 years old and male. Of course he thinks it's funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm more like you than I am like my husband in what I do. But I also learned really early on that if I could just get the kids to giggle, it made things easier. So
Hmm.
I would find something I knew would make them giggle, and then we'd be okay. So I used
Yep.
it as a tool. It worked.
Hmm.
I still use it. My daughter called me months ago, and she was all bent out of shape about something. She's 35 years old, and I said, "Okay, do you need a giggle?" And she's like, "Kind of need a giggle." And I found something. I don't know what it was. And she did. She giggled like she was 5, and she's like, "Thank you. Now I can tell you what I need to tell you because this thing is driving me insane." And it just gave her that room to not be sobbing, to not be crying in her frustration with the thing that was driving her crazy. So,
Hmm.
but anyway, when we talked last, there was some conversation going on about you having a farm store. Did that ever happen?
Well, we are definitely getting closer.
Okay.
We don't have the store yet, but we're actually, in the active thought process of paying for the shed. Um, so that's been pretty exciting. I actually designed the shed online a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in the works. And we're planning, how we're going to run electricity out there. So I'm pretty excited about that. That didn't really feel like it was attainable, but now it's obviously is.
Cool.
So
Good.
yeah, yeah,
And are you going to have produce and eggs and baked goods in it, or what's the plan? What are you going to be
yes.
selling out of it?
Produce, eggs. We're also going to there will be a freezer in there. We'll have no corn, no soy chicken, and no corn, no soy rabbits. There will be pizza dough and sourdough and, candles. And I'm also wanting to do like other people's products as well. Like if somebody has honey or if somebody has maple syrup, just kind of supporting the community as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
if I can in that way.
Yep.
So, mhm.
Fantastic. Since we last talked, we have put in a farm stand. It's been up for 2
Oh,
summers now, I think. And it looks like a little red barn. It's red with white trim. I love this little
oh,
building. And we put an old a small refrigerator from a camper trailer in there, and we run an extension cord to it from the pole barn. And
okay.
and we have tables, like folding tables that we put our stuff on to sell. And my husband says to me 3 weeks ago, he said, couple weekends in April, Cameron and I are gonna be busy out there. And I was like, why? He said, we're gonna tape and mud the drywall and we're gonna paint and we're gonna put in some shelves on the
Oh,
walls and make it look nice. I was like,
exciting.
oh, okay. I said, do you want anything from me on that? And he was like, no. He said, I think we're just going to paint it off white because then it'll reflect the sun that comes in. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And he makes beautiful shelves. Like I have a couple shelves from the old house that we brought to the new house that we put up. And I end up finishing them. I'm the one that polyurethanes them, but he just does really beautiful, simple carpentry. So I'm
Oh,
very excited to see what the inside of our farm stand is going to look like in June when we're ready to put produce and baked goods and stuff in it.
oh, I can't. Yeah, you'll have to share that on Facebook so
Oh,
everybody can see.
I will, because that's what I do. I don't know if you've looked at my page lately, but he sent me photos of the steps when he was done with each step when he built the greenhouse last year. And
Oh,
I would just throw pictures up every time he sent them to me because I'm like, this is so exciting. It's almost done. Yay. So,
Yeah.
so we put up a hard-sided greenhouse since I talked to you last, and that has been a godsend because we extended our growing season by 2 months in the fall
Yes.
and 2 months in the spring.
Yeah.
I love
Yep.
it. I love it. It's packed full of seedlings right now.
Awesome.
Yep. I mean, it's funny because you had all kinds of things that you were talking about and planning for, and we had all kinds of things we were talking about and planning for with the first episode with you. And I think you were like the 11th or 12th episode I released of the podcast. And my husband was
Oh,
kind of listening to it a little bit when I was playing it back to get it ready to go out. He said, I think they're kind of where we are in their journey with this. I said, I think so too. He said, you have got to talk to her again like a year or two from now and see where they're at. So he brought that up the other day. He said, have you talked to anybody you talked to at the beginning? I said, a couple. He said, what about that lady? He said, I can't think of her name, dot, dot, dot. And I went back through the episodes and I ran off the list. And he said, the Misty Mountain one. He said, I remember because she was a Lord of the Rings fan or something. And I said, yeah. He said, you should ask her. I was like, thank you for your input. I will get hold of her
oh,
right away. So you made an impression on my husband anyway.
well, that's sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the reason I say all that is this is a journey. You know, what you're doing, what we're doing, what most homesteaders are doing is a journey. It's not a destination, you know?
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's so fun and it's so frustrating some days because you're like, I want to do this thing, and then you get into it and you're like, it's not working. How do I get this to work? And
Yeah.
big deep breath and sigh and figure it out.
Yep. The lessons are usually very, very hard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're either really, really good or really, really bad. uh, so, yep. And we've had our share of both. So,
Yeah, us too. And I don't want to say really, really bad. I mean, nobody's been maimed or killed that's human here, so that's good news. That does happen, but it
yep.
hasn't happened here.
Yes.
But we've lost
Mm-hmm.
barn cats, and that was sad. We've lost baby bunnies, that was sad. We
Mm-hmm.
had the motor go out on our furnace. That was bad. That was
Oh,
financially
yeah.
bad. And
Mm.
that was when it was so hot last summer. And the furnace is actually the blower for the AC. So that was a few days of really miserable heat in my house. But
Mm-hmm.
the good things that have happened is we've grown enough food to donate to our food shelf, and that's been
Oh, that's
wonderful.
exciting.
And
Mm-hmm.
we've grown enough food to sell at the local farmers market, and that just makes my husband thrilled. He's very I don't have enough berries. He's very times 100 social, and I am not. So the food shop, the farmers market is really good for him. He really loves going on Saturday morning, getting caught up with all the people he knows. So
Yep.
there's
Yep.
all kinds of really fun things that have happened since we moved here, and I love all of it, and even the hard things are lessons I
Mhm.
needed to learn. So
Yep. Yep.
what are
Mm-hmm.
the hard things that have happened for you?
Well, if I'm going to be real honest, I guess one of the hardest things we had to go through was we lost almost our entire rabbit colony last summer.
Ooh,
Um, and we couldn't figure out why they were dying. Um, and my husband actually had a job change, but he was working road construction. So I was home most of the time by myself trying to, deal with everything.
yeah.
And I would walk outside and there would just be bodies,
Oh
you
no.
know, and no matter what we thought it was, no matter what we gave them, it wasn't stopping like them dying. But long story short, we ended up finding out that they had bad hay.
Oh yeah.
The hay was contaminated.
Mhm.
And as soon as we figured that out and we removed all the, we didn't give them the hay, we burned that hay, and then we like really cleaned out their enclosures, and then they stopped dying. But we lost probably like 55 rabbits to that. And I remember just crying about it because it just felt like, why are we even doing this? I was obviously I felt terrible too, because we do care about the animals and we try our best to take care of them, for as long as we have them. And that was pretty intense. But
Yeah. Yep. But now you know. Now you know that
now we know.
if something's wrong, check the food source too.
Right. And we've also realized that a rabbit is very similar to a horse in regards to the quality of hay that they require. It either needs to be like fresh picked greens, or it needs to be like straight alfalfa. So we started feeding them Timothy and alfalfa cubes. And that's actually really good for their teeth too. And then this way we know that the hay is clean. So
yep, alfalfa's wonderful. I'm sad because we used to be surrounded by alfalfa fields, and then the guys decided they were going to grow corn. So it's been corn the last 2 summers. And I don't know if you know this, but fresh alfalfa, like when it's growing in the field, blooms. It has like little lavender and white flowers on it. And when we had our rabbits, we would go and knife a couple pieces of alfalfa off the corner of our lot because the farmer actually rounds the corner, so it's on our property.
Yeah.
And we would bring them sprigs of alfalfa, and they loved it.
Yes.
So yeah, it's really good for them. And our bunnies were fed Timothy hay. We only had rabbits for a little over a year because they were not making babies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Not impressed with that. They weren't earning their keep. And 6 months after we culled our rabbits and put them in the freezer for food, I was reading up on rabbits again. And Timothy hay can actually make them too fat. And if the female rabbits are fat, they don't conceive as easily. And I was like, well, there's my answer. Now I know. So we're not doing rabbits anymore. We decided that we were bad at it, so we're not doing rabbits anymore.
And that's okay. Yep.
Yeah, but we have chickens because chickens are easier than rabbits.
Yes. Yep.
So, but I'm sorry that you had to lose all those bunnies to find out it was their food, but I'm glad you found out it was their food because then you could fix it.
Yep. So. At first we thought it was some kind of weird parasite, and that was overwhelming because it's really hard to know like what it is. But so when we did realize that it was the hay, it was almost a relief in some way, because you can deal with the problem a lot easier as well.
Certainly. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so I want to switch back to your baking really quick because we're almost a half an hour, but I have a couple questions. Are you still doing the baking as a cottage food producer, or did you switch to commercial?
I am still a cottage food producer, and I did have to bump up to a second tier license, and I did take the college classes that I needed also, and I passed all that. But yep, I'm still underneath the cottage license.
Okay. And you're selling your goods at a local store, is that right?
I do a lot of farmers markets. Also, like the community has really picked up, having lots of events.
Yep.
Like different stores will have pop-ups, and I really think that's a really neat thing. And people learn more about, different options for food that farmers around the community have. I do a lot of that, a lot of those.
Okay. And I'm trying to get to this in a way that isn't rude. I always feel like I'm asking really nosy questions.
You're fine.
With the pop-ups, with the cottage food producer thing, the person that makes the food has to be at the point of sale to the customer. So does that mean that you have to be at the pop-up sale?
Yep, I
Okay.
have to be there.
Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with the commercial license, you don't have to be there. And it means that you can ship and it means that you can sell in grocery stores if they wanted to carry your product. Is that right?
That is right.
Okay.
Actually, I've been watching very closely. In the Minnesota legislature right now, they are thinking about allowing cottage food bakers to ship their product. And I was like, no way, because that would open up a huge door for everybody that has a cottage license. So
it certainly would. And I have my registration, and there was a lady that emailed me or messaged me and said, can you ship your granola? And I said, no, how far away are you? And she said, like 4 hours north of LeSueur. And I said, you don't want to drive 4 hours for my granola. And she said, no. And I said, I can't afford to drive 4 hours to bring it to you. And she said, I would never expect you to. She said, how come you can't ship? Because she didn't know about the rules.
Yeah.
And I explained it to her. And she said, please keep me in your contacts. And if and when they finally allow you guys to ship, I still want to buy it. And I thought that was so sweet that she didn't put a time limit on it. Now, the other thing that I got the email that mentioned this thing that you're talking about. I got the email that had it in it the other day. And I went out to the Facebook page for the Minnesota Cottage Food Producers Association thing. And there was a comment about if it goes through, we'll only be allowed to ship in Minnesota.
Oh, interesting.
And I don't know if that's correct. So I'm hoping that maybe it is incorrect and maybe we actually will be able to ship nationwide or worldwide or whatever. I don't know. So I'm very excited to watch how this turns out because it's been floated a few times over the last couple of years about allowing cottage food producers to ship. And it just hasn't gotten passed. So I'm hoping this is the year, Kelsey. I really am.
Yeah, that would be pretty awesome.
Yep. And what makes me so frustrated with it all is my daughter made cookies last Christmas for me specifically and shipped them to me. But it's not a big deal if it's like family who's just shipping you a treat.
Right.
That's
then
fine.
There's no rules. Yep.
And my mom asked me if I could ship her something. And I said, of course I can make those and ship them to you. That's fine. I'll throw them in the overnight mail. No big deal. And then she called me just before I was getting ready to make whatever it was. I don't remember what it was now. And she said, by the way, she said, don't make those. And I said, why? And she said, because someone just brought us a tray of cookies. It's my dad and my mom. She said, and there's lots and we don't need anything else right now. And I was like, oh, okay, well, just let me know. But I could have shipped her the thing I was making, no problem.
Yeah.
So it's very frustrating. And I always get real tight in my voice when I talk about it because it's so frustrating to me that we can't do this yet.
Right.
So fingers crossed that this is the year that cottage food producers in Minnesota get to ship their stuff, at least in Minnesota. We're going to hope for that.
Yeah. That would be a step.
Wouldn't it be helpful? Wouldn't that be great? And there's the tightness and the sarcasm bleeding through. I'm sorry. So anyway, we're at 33 minutes and 15 seconds. Kelsey, thank you for coming back to visit with me. And I'm so excited for all the new things you're doing.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, this was really fun. Keep doing the good things for your community because you're really important to the world, Kelsey.
Oh, thanks.
All right. Have a great day.
Yep, you too.
Bye.
Bye.